Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy on the East Coast. We got Hoodie Nate today, and we've got a Thursday night slate with 6 games on it, and we are looking at player props in this one. Some pretty fun matchups to choose from, so we'll get into that in just a sec. Also want you to like and subscribe to this page. Make sure you're liking, make sure you are able to follow along as we're bringing you a couple game videos and player props each and every weekday this season. Also head to thelines.com. You can check out all our great written content and the picks we talk about here. Also use our odds finder tool on there. That's where you can make sure you're getting the best juice back on all these NBA player props that you're making this season. Nate, let's go ahead and jump into your first NBA player prop for tonight, Mr. James Harden.
Yeah, my props are linked to a degree in that Thunder-Sixers game. I am hoping for a close game. I think the Thunder, when they're plus 10, are always dangerous. Might just fuck around and win this game. You never know with them. But Harden had 37.5 points, rebounds, assists. As long as it's close, I feel good about that. I mean, he just had a triple-double in 26 minutes against Detroit. Second consecutive triple-double, which, by the way, is plus 700 at DK, regardless of the winner, versus FanDuel, you have to go plus 680 for the triple-double in a win. Anyway, Harden been diming up, obviously, since he came back from that injury. 12 assists per game and shooting 45, 40, 82%, which is a huge difference from where he was the last couple seasons, a little bit out of shape, whatever, taking bad shot selection. And still, in his last 3 against OKC, 22 points, nearly 8 rebounds, and 11 assists with high usage rate. In his last 9, I mean, the numbers are consistent: 22, 7, 12 assists, only 25% usage rate. Barely had to shoot against Detroit. But like I said, I think this will be a closer game with the Thunder coming to play, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being my other pick here in player props, going over after we went under. OKC does give up the 4th most rebounds to shooting guards. They play at a very fast pace. So I think bundle all the stats together is the way to get the best odds here, because there's a chance Harden goes under 20.5 points where his prop is at, but he can easily get double-digit assists.
Yeah, easily triple-double watch for Harden pretty much every night right now, since he sort of fell into that role of accepting that, he's not the number 1 scorer on this team. And in fact, if he could just go ahead and feel free to be the number 3 scorer on the team and get 12 to 15 assists in each game, I think the 76ers will take that all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. And this is going to be a fun matchup. The Thunder are now 11-5 covering as away dogs this season. So 10 points is a lot for a team that definitely hangs tough when they're faced with a challenge on the road like this one. Philly looks like one of the best teams in the league right now, obviously. I mean, just dropped 147 on Detroit or whatever. So plenty of points, I think, to be expected in this one, in which case Harden will be chipping in for sure on a lot of those, as he's got probably the highest percentage of points scored or assisted on his team this season of any player. So I love taking Harden. We haven't talked about him enough, to be honest, especially in the last few weeks, as he's been on a complete tear. So I'm going to the game that we talked about, the Nets and the Celtics, and I hinted that Ben Simmons, maybe some Royce O'Neal would be in here. I think Ben Simmons is a good start. Look, he's needed. It's time to show up, specifically on the defensive end and getting defensive rebounds. So I really like him to get rebounds tonight. It's 7.5. If you want over that, it's minus 120 on DK. But if you take the points as well, it's at 8.5, which is a bit high considering he's averaging 7 points a game in his last 10. It's a situation where I think you've got to expect 2 to 3 more points for each of these players. Ben Simmons and Royce O'Neal included, another guy I would talk about who's at about a different prop there. But finishing Ben Simmons 17 points and rebounds combined, I'd like getting a little bit better juice there. It is his first game versus Boston with this Nets team, but when he did play them with Philly, we're talking about 17 points a game, 7 boards, 7 assists. Slightly different Ben Simmons, but he needs to play a little bit more like a star versus a role player with KD out. And then his last 4 at home where they're playing, 8 points, 8 assists, and about 7 boards, which gets you over all those props as well. And really, it's about the fact that the uptick in stats that I expect is also heavily based on minutes. He only played 29 minutes last game. There's no way he's playing less than 35, 36 minutes tonight. And as a result, I think the usage, even at 15%, is going to be up a little bit as he's going to be getting some offensive rebounds. The Celtics, not a good rebounding team, allow the 7th most rebounds on the road and a 23rd in terms of their transition D on the road, which is obviously also good for Simmons to get those defensive rebounds and push. So, the Celtics really do a solid job of limiting assists, which is why I don't love adding that in there for Ben, who's gone under 5 assists a few times in his last 10 games. And it's up all the way up for like at 7.5, 8.5 for him, depending on where you find it. So I'm happy to leave those out and go points and rebounds, or just rebounds, or honestly just points at 8.5, because I do think just a couple more shot attempts for him tonight should lead to about 10 points.
Yeah, not to correct your math, but 8 points per game and 7 rebounds per game the last 4 does not get you over this prop. But that's exactly the point. He only played 23 minutes and had a 15% usage rate in those 4 games. Nets obviously are going to need more from him with Durant out. We're going to need more from Royce O'Neal too, but I mean, O'Neal is more of a guy that really benefits from open looks when the defense collapses on Kyrie and KD, and Simmons really should just be kind of forcing the issue as the Nets kind of focus more on our half-court offense is not going to be as good, so let's push the ball. And so, yeah, I think he will be aggressive in transition here at home. So I already said I'm going over on SGA. It's 28.5 points after we successfully and scarily went under at 29.5 in his last matchup against Miami. And you could say he struggled against Philly as well. I mean, he hasn't actually played at Philadelphia with fans since he joined the Thunder. The matchup has not really happened. They did play at home against the Sixers and got blown out. He only had 14 points in December. That was without Maxey and Harden playing, though. Big difference, I think, in the defense you're seeing from Melton and Milton versus Maxey and Harden, who have a 122 and 117 defensive rating, respectively, this month. Philly now allowing the 6th most points to shooting guards in the last 2 weeks since they got both those guys back. He did face he faced Maxey and Seth Curry as a starting backcourt last season and went for 29, 8, and 6. Did SGA. And, I mean, we know what he does. On the road especially, 31 points per game, 34% usage rate. There's no way this is going to be a close game without SGA cooking. And I think the way the Sixers are cooking on offense, we will see plenty of stats coming back and forth. Harden and SGA hopefully, kind of playing that Matador D to let each other get their stats.
Almost your turn, my turn in the sense of not even teammates, just opposite opponents there. I like that as well. Like we said, if the Thunder are going to come along and cover in this one, this is going to be much less of a slobber knocker than that Miami game that they played, even though that one was pretty wide open as well. I think there's going to be ample opportunity for SGA to get his tonight. I like your thinking of both these. It's really fun. Maybe find both players to get a certain stat. Kind of fun bonus in there as well. A lot of offerings, but fun way to play that game, and a game that I'm definitely going to be watching as well. So I'm going to close things out with Mr. Plumlee here on the Hornets, a guy we definitely have not talked about this year, but is near and dear to both our hearts as I dropped him in fantasy. You picked him up, and he's having a killer monster year for the Hornets. 22.5 points and rebounds for him is -1. I mean, look, he's filling up stats, Nate. He's getting like 4 or 5 assists a game. At any rate, monster might be a little bit extreme, but 22.5 points and rebounds, -105 on DraftKings. I do like the odds you get there. You 12.5 rebounds and assists, as I am talking sparklingly about his assist ability this season, +105 if he gets 13 boards and assists there. Like you called it, it's a little bit boring to talk about Mason Plumlee, but I do think that it's worth it because he is, on a team that their backup center rotation is sort of in flummox right now, and against a Toronto team where they allow the most rebounds or 3rd most rebounds per game to centers over their last 3, but really on the season allowing a lot to opposing centers as well, as they don't really have a solid starting center. So it's a good opportunity for a guy who definitely can eat and get some stats when there's he's pretty much the tallest and strongest guy on the floor, because he's also shown a bit of versatility as well. When they did lose to Toronto a couple of nights ago, 21 points, 7 boards, 3 assists in that L. And in his last 7 overall, about 17 a game and 11 boards with 3 assists. So, the only time he actually came up short in that of any of these props was against Memphis, who right now, Jaren Jackson Jr. making a strong case for, Defensive Player of the Year, not to mention Steven Adams getting in there and making things difficult for Plumlee, where he's now not the tallest or strongest guy on the floor, obviously. So this is a much better matchup versus, guys on Toronto who just really hemorrhage points in the rookie Coloco. And even when Chris Boucher gets out there, there's really no defensive presence, which is why they struggle in terms of allowing centers to just dominate the boards on them. So it's a good opportunity for Mason for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he probably weighs more than Boucher and Siakam combined, and Toronto's just
Precisely.
that. You talk about your turn, my turn. I mean, yeah, their strategy is basically like, yeah, you might get us in the paint a few times, but try to guard these guys with wing skills as a center. But the Hornets are sticking with Plumlee because they don't really care about this season, and he's a nice, solid player who can put those stat lines up. Yeah, I mean, seeing like 12 and a half points for him, it's like, yeah, that's pretty easy over for me. I mean, especially with Charlotte coming back from the loss, they should. He had 21 points in a pretty non-competitive game, and that Memphis game you mentioned was a total blowout. As long as they're pretty competitive here tonight, I think he gets over both the points and rebounds.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I'll just put it this way. I would love to have Mason Plumlee as the backup center on the New York Knicks as well. So I think he could definitely bring value there. He's starting for an awful team that doesn't have any other center that you can trust. So you also got to feel good about him getting some pretty big minutes if this game is able to stay a little bit closer. It was close for most of the last game too, which is why he was able to stay in there and get stats until Toronto pulled away at the very end to win by double digits. So anyway, that is all the time we have for you guys in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us as we're bringing you these videos each and every weekday this season. Until we see you next, happy betting.